Hi guys, thanks for coming back to another video. I appreciate y'all coming back. I had not planned on making a video this evening. I was kind of hoping just to kind of kick back and relax a little bit. I'm still dealing with my sore throat and feeling a little under the weather. But I saw something in my email today. I read over part of it during lunch today. That I saw was so exciting, confirming a lot of the information that we have received ourselves, but also some important information that I think I would like to bring up to you. I just knew I wanted to go ahead and get this out to you. So what you're seeing here is this is just a snippet of my email. It's just showing you my email itself, my personal email, and you can see that I received an email at 1 o'clock or almost 1 o'clock in the morning last night from Neville Johnson. Now, this is not a personal email from him. It is coming from Neville, but it's in regards to his publication that he puts out. Several years back, I'd say probably maybe 3.5 years back or something like that. It's been a while. He put out some feelers that he was going to be starting to publish a publication where he was going to be sharing some information. And I signed up for it at that time. And I don't know, several months later, all of a sudden I got my first email from him with the very first issue of his publication called Our Finest Hour. And since that time, it has grown. He's got a whole lot more people providing articles for it now and whatnot. But when this came in, and I opened it up over at lunch today, I have not opened up his particular publication for the last several installments. He sends it out quarterly. And I'm not sure why I haven't. I just haven't seen it. Maybe I didn't see the email, or maybe I just overlooked it or what have you. But this is the first time I'm looking at it probably for several quarters. But I wanted to go ahead and show you what it is, and so that if you guys are interested in receiving this publication coming to your personal email, you can go on to his website and subscribe for yourself. I would highly recommend it. His publications and information that he's sharing, excuse me, I have found early in my walk to be invaluable. But later on, just to be confirming that, yes, indeed, I am on the right track, and I am hearing from the Lord, even though it's stuff that I don't quite understand. So I wanted to show you what this particular email was, and go ahead and pull up the publication that I read over. I read at least one article over lunch today. But what I didn't even recognize earlier is it says, don't forget to bookmark our YouTube page for a weekly Word of the Week. I had no idea he had that. So let's just go ahead and open it up together, because I don't know what this is about, but we'll take a look at it so we can see. This is his site, the Academy of Light. You would want to go on that particular, the academyoflight.org or com or whatever it is, and excuse me, there will be something there that you can go ahead and subscribe for the publication. And he does house some of his older teachings on this particular site. But take a look here. This is interesting. I haven't seen any of these before, so this is something new. Oh gosh, look at this right here, breaking through the veil. What? Oh my goodness. Entering into the heavenly realm, or entering heaven's realm. Guys, wow. That's fallen right in line with what we've been talking about. Let's see what else he's got in here. Voice of the Nations, the Joseph Ministries, Signs in the Heavens, the End Time Harvest, Hidden in the Mark. Guys, I don't know. As soon as I get done with this video, I'm going to be watching these two right here at least. So that's pretty interesting. Okay, so I didn't even see that at lunch today. That's something new. But what I wanted to show you is you can go online even if you don't subscribe, and just go ahead and get his finest hour. It's the Academy of Light, and you can subscribe. But here is volume 3, so I guess maybe this is his 3rd year. And as you can see, it comes out quarterly. This is the one that we're going to go into today. So in this issue, it's showing there's an article here by Neville Johnson. This is the one that I read over at lunch today because of what it's talking about. It's talking about crossing over, which is right in line with what we've been talking about. We've been talking about entering into the promised land. He has Bobby Connor that provides articles. Bobby's been doing it for a little bit now. Joe Sweet has also been doing it for a little bit now. Joe, you guys might recognize from California, where they do those prophetic conferences over there. Kent Maddox has been putting in some articles in there for a little bit. Sadhu, I think, is new now, starting to put those in, or not long. And then Bruce Allen, which we are familiar with his translocation videos and teachings that he's put out. If you guys have seen any of his, he's got some pretty interesting videos on trans relocation. So, but this is the one that I saw at lunch today. I've not had a chance to even look at these. When I opened up this article and started reading the one that caught my eye naturally, I was so excited. You guys came immediately to my mind, where I'm like, I have to share this because a lot of what he's saying is confirming what we have been shown and been talking about. But there's a few things in here that I want to remind you all of, and Neville's sharing some dreams, and so I want to go ahead and talk about that. Of course, there's Neville right there. So here's the article that he has here, and we're just going to go ahead and start reading some of this. Excuse me, it won't take long, but I want to talk to you all a little bit about some of the things he has in here. So let's start it off. Recently, I have experienced the replay of dreams that I had a few years ago. This is significant inasmuch as when a dream is repeated a second time, the time of its fulfillment is close. Now, guys, I mean, right off the bat, I'm like, oh, wow, right? Because how many times have I come up and I've said, now, guys, I know I'm telling you this now, but I know I've dreamt this at least twice. I've dreamt about this at least twice. And I knew it was significant, but I had no idea that meant what he's saying here, which is pretty interesting. So when Pharaoh had a dream twice, Daniel said this to him, and for that dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Genesis 41. I had this dream a number of years ago, which I very recently had again. I had a dream in which I was an observer of a large company of people who have come to a set of crossroads. 4 roads had met forming these crossroads, and all the people had come down the same road and now faced 4 options. They had the option of proceeding right, forward, or left, or they could return where they had come from. In this dream, I was also aware of the Lord, who also was observing this. I looked at the Lord, and without speaking, I conveyed to him the thought of what is going on here. And then I began to understand the meaning of the situation. There was no spoken communication between me and the Lord, but nevertheless, there was a very clear unspoken communication between us. Now, guys, I know that I have conveyed to you that when I enter into the Spirit and I'm talking with the Lord, I know I have said, man, it's really quiet here. Because he's thinking to me. He's not really speaking to me. He is speaking to me, but he's speaking to me in thought. And so when I read this, I was like, okay, I'm with you. I get that. I understand. It's like you have a download of information. I think a lot of you can understand that. So there are times and seasons in God. Some of these seasons are critical, some are optional, some are time sensitive, and have far-reaching ramifications. We need to understand the difference, okay? Listen now what he's saying here. We need to understand the difference between the perfect will of God and the permissive will of God. So there is a difference. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Romans 12:2. So life is full of choices, and we know that, guys. We know we have free will, right? We have free choice. So life is full of choices, and it is these choices that determine how we live our lives and how our lives end up. Okay. Let me get here. Many times we weave in and out of the perfect will of God, resulting in our lives being a mix which limits us greatly in our walk with the Lord. The permissive will of God is that which God permits, but is not His perfect will for us. This often results in the loss of many privileges and blessings. Our protection against the enemy is predicated upon you and I being in the perfect will of God. We are told to first submit ourselves to God before we can resist the enemy. James 4:7. Because we all have free will and the right to choose, God permits Christians to continue in the permissive will of God, albeit with limited access to much of His grace and privileges. Living on this level is not sufficient to protect us from the encroaching darkness. The prophet Isaiah prophesied about these end times in Isaiah. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and the gross darkness the people. But the Lord shall rise upon thee, and His glory shall be seen upon thee. And that's in Isaiah 60. This phrase, gross darkness, in the Hebrew language has the thought of dripping with thick darkness. In order to survive this darkness, it is needful for us to be in the perfect will of God. As I continued to observe what was happening in this dream, I became aware that each road had a name. The road that they walked down to get to the crossroads was called the past. The road to the right was called selfishness. The road to the left was called fear. And the road straight ahead was called glory. I then began to see that some turned back and began to walk back to where they had come from. These people could not leave the past behind and move on into new and greater things in God. Some began to turn to the left and go off in that direction. This primarily was because of fear. This fear was being generated from not being able to trust the Lord with their lives and move on into the unknown. Their lives were reasonably comfortable, and they were not able to change or risk changing this. Others turned to the right and went down the road of selfishness. Simply, they wanted to do and go where they wanted, and this selfish motivation determined their direction. Finally, a group began to walk straight ahead and began to walk up the street called Glory. And I noticed that as they began to eagerly walk down this road, it got lighter and lighter. And then I turned to see the others who were walking down the other roads, and as they walked, it began to get darker and darker. This encroaching darkness was very slow at first, almost imperceptible, but the darkness slowly increasing the further they went down the road. And as I looked at these people upon whom the darkness was slowly encroaching, the story of the frog and the kettle came to mind. Now, guys, what came to my mind here was all those times that the Lord has told us. He's given us this warning in messages. Do not turn to the left or to the right, but walk straight ahead. How many times has He told us that? He has. He's told us that many times. He's told us even this way, do not lean to the left or the right. He's even told us that way. But stay straight ahead. Continue moving forward. He has told us that many times. And so that is what popped into my mind as soon as I read that. I thought, oh my goodness, there it is. So let's go ahead and continue on, because he's going to talk to us a little bit about this frog in the kettle. Excuse me. So a famous experiment was once conducted that involved placing a frog in a kettle of water. Don't know who ever thought up this experiment, but it serves as an excellent illustration. If the frog was placed in a pot of boiling water, the frog would immediately jump out as to not be scalded. Then the frog was placed into a pot of cold water. As the frog sat contentedly in the water was heated 1 degree at a time. The frog adapted to the gradual change in temperature until it boiled to death. Many Christians today are not aware of the encroaching darkness and are adapting to it without even knowing. Finally, I became aware of the fact that what the Lord was showing me in this dream was time sensitive. In other words, many Christians were being brought to a point of decision in their lives, and their response to these decisions were limited in time. We cannot afford to be in the permissive will of God. God is now proving those who He can trust. Over the next few years, we will see moves of God and changes in the church unparalleled in history, and history will truly become His story, reaching its fullness and glory in the few years that we have left. So on the 28th of March 2008, the Lord gave Neville a dream which had profound implications regarding the coming harvest. I found myself in the dream standing on a beach. The tide was almost full, and somehow that seemed significant. The water gently lapped the sandy shoreline, and a light-colored mist hung over the water a few hundred meters offshore. The atmosphere was crisp yet warm. Suddenly, a boat appeared through the mist, heading toward me. A man was standing, holding a tiller, and cheerfully called to me, saying, "Do you want to come fishing?" I hesitated for a moment and then said, "Okay," pushing the boat out at the same time jumping in. The man's face emanated a glow that was not of this world. He had a rugged yet refined look. He seemed very focused and determined. I had the strange feeling that I had been here before, but could not quite put my finger on it. The boat quickly moved into the deep water and stopped. The water was teeming with fish, and it almost seemed like the fish wanted to be caught. This man looked at me and said, "My name is Peter." And with that, he threw the net out, and what seemed like no time at all, he was pulling it in again, and the net was teeming with fish. As soon as the fish hit the deck of the boat, they turned into people of all ages. I was struggling to get my mind around this unusual phenomenon when Peter said, "The final harvest must be reaped, but it can only be reaped by those who have crossed the river Jordan." Okay, guys, listen to what he just said. He said the final harvest must be reaped, but it can only be reaped by those who have crossed the river Jordan and have moved into the promised land. Now, guys, as soon as I saw this, I was like, oh my goodness, is this not aligning with what we're talking about, going into the Holy of Holies and crossing into the promised land? Suddenly it dawned on Neville, okay, that in his dream he was talking to the Apostle Peter. And before he could speak, Peter continued. Jesus was involved in 2 fishing trips while he walked this earth, one at the beginning of his ministry and one towards the end of his ministry. Luke 5:4-10 and John 21:6-8. Peter continued, "On the first fishing trip, the net broke. But on the second trip, the net held. And so it will be in this final harvest. The net will hold. The net broke in the early church, and much was lost. But it will not be so in your day. Those who have left the wilderness behind and have crossed over into the promised land are those who have one goal and motive, which is only to build the kingdom of God. Jealousy, anger, selfish ambition no longer will hinder them nor spoil the harvest. Pride no longer motivates them, and they have come into rest. Now, guys, we learned that where we were talking about the tabernacles representing rest, and then when the Lord told me to rest my head, remember? So there's something about this rest. Also, when I had those dreams about being on that tropical island, that beach, I knew I was there to rest. I was there with like-minded people who had the same heart and desires as me, but I was also there to rest because I was up walking around, and I knew I was supposed to be resting. So this rest is something significant here. But let's come back. It says, so pride no longer motivates them, and they have come into rest. The final harvest has begun and will increase in intensity until the end. The end is now in sight. The finishing line is in view. What begun at Pentecost will finish in your day. The great cloud of witnesses watch with great joy and anticipation for the final consummation. Just as the harvest began with one generation in my day, so it will finish with this present generation in your day. My generation saw the foundations laid. Your generation will see the building completed. There will be many in your generation that will overcome all things, even death. Your generation saw tares sown into the harvest field. Your generation will see all the tares removed. Guys, listen. Is this not confirming what he's just told us? Your generation will see all the tares removed. The harvest wave is upon you. You will accomplish in one generation what hundreds of generations have longed to see. The Feast of Pentecost must give way to the Feast of Tabernacles. Your generation will accomplish that which the church not over the past let's come back. Your generation will accomplish that which the church could not over the past 2,000 years. The glorious shadow that emanated from the early church was just that, a shadow. You will see the fullness of the glory of God in one generation, manifested in such a way that nothing will be impossible. The miracles we saw were just a foretaste of what was to come. Peter paused. Looking at the people in the boat, he said, "See how the boat has now grown?" I was amazed that the boat was now huge and was accommodating so many people, it was impossible to estimate how many people were now in the boat. Peter continued, "The seed of early church martyrs will blossom in your generation. One seed will produce countless multitudes in the harvest of your day. They watch with gratitude to the Lord for allowing them to be a part of what you will experience. This seed will explode into continuing ever-increasing harvests until the Lord returns. They have waited to see this day." Excuse me. Peter looked at me and said, "Tell the Christian leaders of your day, if they seek to profit by this harvest and build their own kingdoms with the harvest, they will be destroyed. This harvest is holy. This fruit is precious. If you cause any to stumble, you will surely be destroyed." Guys, now, this is the reason why I have said many times in in some of my videos, guys, please be careful of your words. You don't want to harm the new believers, the young believers, the fragile hearts that are coming to learn. This is why some have had to be blocked off of the channel. This is why I'm saying that I need a safe place for people to come and be able to talk and learn and ask questions. I have said before that anybody that sways somebody's faith is going to be held responsible for it. And right here, he is saying it again. So guys, please be careful. Please be careful about that, okay? So it says, if you cause any not just to stumble, you will surely be destroyed. Now that's serious wording right there. I felt the force and gravity of what Peter had just said, and it hit me like a hammer blow. And I had to steady myself somewhat in order not to miss anything more Peter had to say. Peter continued, purity of heart is required for those who are to be involved in gathering this harvest. It is the Lord's harvest, not your harvest. He has waited for this with great longing and anticipation. Now, he just said in a message or conversation to me that, he has come a long way to provide us for where we are now. That I believe those words are in line with what he was saying to me. Excuse me, but purity of heart. Guys, what has he been talking to us about for the last couple of years? Open your heart. Lay it down. Forgive, release. Look at some of these wounds and this brokenness and these painful memories, all of these things that he's been bringing up to us, because it's in our heart. Our heart has memory cells. It's being remembered in our heart, and he wanted us to go ahead and deal with this. We even just said it in the video yesterday, where he's already told us, I cannot fill what's already full. Okay, he cannot fill what's already full. And so for the past several years on all of these videos, we're repenting and we're like, Lord, let me just open my heart to you. Just look in there and tell me what is in there. Tell me what has to come out of there. What do I need to deal with? And so you guys, if you've been watching my channel for a while, then you know that is the way that he has been leading us. And look what Peter is saying. It is the purity of heart. And that is what is required for those who are to be involved in the gathering of the harvest. So you got to cross the Jordan, you got to get into the promised land, and you got to be pure in heart. Amazing, amazing stuff. So be patient, therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord. Behold, the husbandman waiteth for the precious fruit of the earth, and hath long patience for it, until he receive the early and the latter rain. Be you also patient, establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord draweth nigh. James 5, verses 7 and 8. Finally, Peter said, don't be impetuous like I was. So don't be rushing through it and trying to, without great thought and concern is what that means. He said, don't be impetuous like I was. Follow the Lord of the harvest. True sons of God are led by the Spirit of God. I began to feel a holy fear which triggered a determination never to hurt or hinder the harvest, never to use it for my own ends and purposes. Peter looked at me and said, great grace will be given to your generation, but great accountability will be required. With that, he was gone, and I awoke. I was talking to my friend Lou some time back, and she was the one that was telling me this is the age of accountability. This is the age of accountability. That's what she told me. And here it is right here. So many years ago, I had another very powerful dream, which recently was repeated. So, oh my goodness, let's see what this one is about. In this dream, I got into an elevator. As the elevator moved up, my life was described on each floor of the elevator. As the elevator reached each floor, the door opened, and on the wall opposite was written the events and purposes that was happening at that level and time in my life. Eventually, there were just 2 floors left. The elevator finally reached the, penultimate floor. I don't know what that means. the door opened, and on the opposite wall was written, the release of finance, a transfer of wealth of the wicked to the righteous. I walked outside, and there was a huge satellite dish and 2 large angels and a flag which read, a prophetic voice to the nations. There were no floors left. I was outside, right at the top of the building. Now, guys, I know that I have mentioned to you that I was sitting in class at night. While I was sleeping, I believe I was in the spirit sitting in the classroom. I told you guys there was only 2 things that I recalled from being in that classroom. I knew that scripture was in front of me. I knew there was other documents in front of me on my desk. But the 2 things that I did recall from that class, from awaking in the morning, was the fact that there was a transfer of wealth we were learning about, and we were learning about the resurrection. Those 2 things. I understood that actually I was speaking with someone in regards to the transfer of wealth, and I said I said that I felt like it was his giftings coming to us, but we know whatever happens in the spirit will happen in the physical. And so I said also too that, I believe then there is possibility of a transfer of wealth here on earth. If you have listened to some of those, what is it, the Prophecy Club, there's a gentleman that puts out a particular video there, and he just reports on several of the more notable people hearing from the Lord. There is someone that he talks about that has been prophesying, actually more than one, about a wealth transfer coming from the wicked, excuse me, in regards to something that may be happening here in the United States. So you guys can check that out and see for yourselves. But I thought that was interesting because that did confirm my classroom in the spirit, I guess, experience. I say it could have been a dream, but when you wake up from the dream and you say, I'm gonna tell you it's a dream, but man, I'm telling you I was there. It was that kind of a thing. So here at the end of it, where he's talking about, I walked outside and there was a huge satellite dish, 2 large angels and a flag which read, a prophetic voice to the nations. We know that there are those that are going to be his mouthpiece, and they're going to be speaking on his behalf. They're going to be speaking his words, his scripture, his truths unto people. And so I understood this. I also have another friend, Jill. She had a dream about me in regards to something very similar to this right here. So he goes on and he says, I believe right now we have reached the 2 top floors in God's calendar, the release of finance and the wealth of the wicked to come to the righteous, and that every nation now will hear the gospel of the kingdom. He said the point is this: we are now almost at the top. Release of finance and the gospel will be preached to every tribe and nation. We are the most privileged generation of all time, and the end is in sight, and we have to finish the race. We are on the final lap. So it says here, I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet the bread to the wise, nor yet riches to the men of understanding, excuse me, nor yet favor to men of skill, but time and chance happened to them all. Ecclesiastes 9. So he's saying, he's showing us some Hebrew names about time, meaning especially now, impact, and to light upon. He's using the word time, chance, and happen. So time and chance impact light upon us all. How we respond to these times and seasons determine our future. These are set times in God's plan and purposes that are crucial or central to our growth and development in God. These set times cannot be changed. And he goes on to provide several scriptures here that I will just let you guys read on your own. There are times that God, in his grace, can extend time in order to give us more time to repent. However, that extra time has already been factored into God's perfect time. The story of the journey of the children of Israel from Egypt to the Promised Land was written for and applies primarily to this last generation on the earth. So now all these things happened unto them for examples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the end of the world are come. 1 Corinthians 10. So when they came to the river Jordan, a place where they had to cross over into the land promised to them by God, they refused to cross over. So remember, we just talked about this in that video yesterday. There was there was only 2 spies out of the whole grouping of either 10 or 12 that came back that had faith that God will do as God said he would do, and that they could take the giants in the land. But everyone else started complaining and allowed fear and doubt, or fear and unbelief, to keep them in the wilderness. Remember, we just said that. So let's go here, and it says, so they refused to cross over. This was a curious moment which cost them another 40 years, eventually resulting in them dying in the wilderness. I don't know about you, but to me this is very scary. For the day shall come upon thee, that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee, and encompass thee round, and keep thee in on every side, and shall lay thee even with the ground, and thy children within thee, and they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knewest not the time of thy visitation. Luke 19. So they didn't realize what they were saying no to. They had no idea. They had no idea. So Israel had been looking for and waiting for the coming of the Messiah. However, when the Messiah did come, they missed it. They did not recognize the time and the season. The sad thing is they are still looking for the Messiah. It's time to move on. Take hold of God and take hold of your inheritance and destiny, which was given to you before this world was created. We must make a choice before God. The choice is to leave the old and proceed with the new. So guys, I'm telling you, please go and get this particular publication. Go through and read some of this stuff, guys. I'm telling you, that was a fascinating article. Many, many, many confirmations for what the Lord has been showing us as well. So guys, you know, we are right there. We're standing right at the veil. We're standing, getting ready to cross over into the promised land. And we have to do it, guys. We have to do it. So guys, like I said in the video yesterday, I'm going to say it again. Neville makes it and identifies it as the perfect will of God and the permissive will of God. What God will allow, okay? But it is not his highest and best. Guys, please, if you've got anything in your life that you feel that the Lord has been tugging at your heart about, please go to him and put it down. I'm asking you, if you need prayer, put something up in the comments and let us all start praying for you so that you can have the additional strength that you need through Jesus. He can do this for you guys. Please trust your God, okay? You take the steps that you need to take, and God will take the steps that he needs to take, okay? So guys, I just wanted to bring this forth to you. I was not planning on bringing a video out to you. But this was just too good to pass up. I'm telling you, it was just too good to pass up. I'll provide the link for the article, but please go in and subscribe if you feel so led. I will also put the link to the new videos that I'm going to listen to as soon as I take some cold medicine and crawl up in my bed in my jammies. So guys, good night. God bless you. Please stay under his wing. We are in a very, very high watch period right now. Until I speak to you all again. Bye.